Hopping into Chaminade, how'd your season go last year?
Good. Yeah, it went well, man. It was a year where we had our backs against the wall a lot through different circumstances like injuries. We had a starter go down after the second game in Maui for the year, so he was done. So that was right off the bat. We had to make adjustments, and then yeah, just a little different things, adjusting our style a little bit, especially defensively, because we were very small. We more or less played two small guards now that are thick and like strong and athletic kids, but they are size height wise small, and then like three big wings. Like we didn't have a true big. So adjusting to that defensive style, and you can't really play that style completely in Maui. So it's like in Maui's we go two D2 games, and then we go into Maui and then back D2 games. So adjusting, all right, we're playing this style for these two D2 games, and then it's like, well, you can't really press, run, trap these 6'6" lottery pick point guards. Like it's not going to work. So toning that back a little bit, figuring out, adjusting to that, and then going back to it. So overall, year went well. We had our back against the wall through injuries and stuff like that, but we came out with some big wins. A win at Point Loma, like if we wouldn't have won that game, this season was more or less done. Pulled that one out, and then had a couple other big ones. Azusa at home when they were top 10 in the country early in the year and stuff like that. So there were some highs and there were some lower points too, but overall, man, the group of guys just made it so much fun. Like arguably it was probably one of the top years of how much fun I had coaching, because first off, the guys were I tell them all the time, I can't thank them enough. They're so low maintenance. Yeah, the little amount of work I had to do on stuff that was not basketball, comparatively for most of my years, was unbelievable. And I mean, that's credit to them. It's also been, I think, a change in our mindset slowly and gradually, not like a big one, like, all right, we're flipping to this, but just like more and more importance on recruiting those kind of guys all the time. Eric Bovaird, our head coach, I mean, just really smart dude in the fact that his mentality on that is like, you can take one or two guys who maybe have had like something in their past, or just they grew up in something that, okay, maybe they made a mistake, or they have a little bit of I wouldn't say red flag, a yellow flag or something like that. If you got 14, 13 guys around them that are just good dudes, take care of business and stuff, because those guys, once you especially pull them out to a place like Hawaii, you're so far away, they gravitate towards the people around them, and they get built up and we become really, really good young men. So we've been doing that, and those guys are a lot of times the kind of guys who are make or break on our season, because they're really talented, clearly.
Yeah.
Very good players, and if they buy in and if they're willing to kind of go in that direction with the rest of their teammates, it's like, okay, now we got 15 guys that are this way, and these dudes are studs on the floor. So I love Eric's approach on that, and I've really tried to follow that recruiting wise, and look at that layout.
Do you kind of take it case by case, and is it kind of, okay, a kid gets on your radar but has maybe a yellow flag? Is that something where you guys come together and kind of just talk through it and figure that out? Or
yeah, the biggest thing is we dig into why. We dig into why, and we dig into the people in that kid's background, like really heavy, like even more than, okay, we usually talk to the high school coach, the AU coach, parents, but now all of a sudden, like if it's a kid like that, well, maybe we're talking to an opposing coach in the league who just saw his demeanor on the floor and doesn't know the kid personally, but saw his demeanor on the floor and has maybe heard a little bit about him throughout the league and stuff like that. And just finding different angles and like taking everything and seeing if it's something that's just like, oh, he's being a product of his environment, or this is like truly a thing that he's not going to be able to adjust from and it's too late. I think high school is a little bit harder to take guys like that. You can kind of look at it either way. Junior college, it's like, man, I mean, it's junior college. You know how JUCO is, man. They're grinding. They're trying to make it. And they're trying to get a scholarship and do better for their family and stuff like that. But there are a lot of distractions, and Some guys do really well there, and some guys get caught up in all the other BS. So that's a little bit easier to kind of like, okay, well, he did this here, but what was he like in his high school years? Go back and talk to his high school coach, go back and talk to his academic counselor, go back and talk to one of his favorite teachers, something like that. High school, it's a little bit tougher because it's like, well, this is all they have known, and this is all they've been, and they've been at home, and they've been in this situation. So will they adjust fully if we get them out here, and how long will that take? Is that a redshirt year? Is that, yeah. So there's different ways of looking at it, because high school guys, like, most of the time, they're not going to affect the bigger morale and the group and everything. Like, you can redshirt them. We'll figure it out. We'll work through it. We'll get there. We'll mature. When we're bringing in 2-year guys, it's like those guys are coming in right now to be studs on this roster. We're losing an all-league guy. You're coming in to replace that all-league guy. So those ones we have to be like very, 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 very sure. Before we make a move.
Have you guys completed your class for this recruiting class?
No, we got 2 more left. Hopefully have this big done in the next couple days. And then we got 1 more, got an offer out now to like a bigger wing. But those things come and go, man. With all the rule changes right now with Division I, they're supposed to know on May 20th about the 1-year transfer rule for Division I's. So if that goes, if that clears, there's going to be a lot of guys, especially the junior college level, that are more open to D2 opportunities and NAI opportunities and other opportunities like that for sure, where they can still get a scholarship. But they're holding off on that. But that's already been pushed like 4 or 5 times. So it's just that this time period with the pandemic and everything is so it's new ground for everybody. So it's kind of just wanting to wait and be patient and let guys take their time in making decisions and feel everything out. But at the same time, everybody's sitting at home right now doing the same thing. We're sitting here, we're pounding the phones, we're talking to a bunch of different kids all day. And it's like, okay, well, I'd like to get this going and have this class done and then start thinking about, okay, how we're going to play with this group and adjust to who we have and things like that. So it's a balancing act, not trying to get too overwhelmed and nervous about it and push people in directions where in the end it'll turn on us and not be a good fit, not be a good situation. Take time so everybody knows for sure. But it's just it's a whole new playing field with the pandemic and the dead periods and whatnot.
Over the past couple of years, thinking back to kids that you have got to commit to Chaminade, where have you found most of your success? Is it finding them at AU tournaments? Is it coaches referring you to kids, emails, kids reaching out themselves?
Yeah. Well, the crazy part about Chaminade, it's very mixed, like with all those things, because we're far away and it's expensive to fly. So we definitely are not around as much. And then there's just on the island, honestly, basketball's not the biggest sport. Football is by far, for men's high school sports, the biggest sport. What a lot of kids concentrate on. So it's not like we have a lot of local recruiting to do. We do sub, and we usually get 1 or 2 local guys per year. But we can't just get in our cars and drive to a good high school tournament this weekend or something like that. So when we're on the road, we take full advantage of being on the road in our conference. And I'm out recruiting as much as possible. Usually we have 1 assistant at a practice before a game, but the other assistant's out recruiting. Because we got to take advantage of those free flights and everything like that. Small recruiting budget, like most D2s. But so we can, in person during the high school season, a lot of stuff during the live periods because we stay out for extended periods of time. I mean, we'll come back to the mainland and stay here for a month straight and just hit all the tournaments, usual summer or spring. And then, I mean, we've gotten guys off emails too, random emails. We always check our emails. We go through them. We don't just delete emails and disregard them. Now, trying to respond to every single email is more or less not possible when you wake up to 200, 250 every morning.
Is that real? You get about 200, 250 a morning?
Yeah. You wake up, especially the time difference than when you're in Hawaii. I mean, it's 6 hours to the East Coast. So you wake up and you've got a ton already just sitting there waiting for you.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So it is quick. I mean, it's a real thing. And I remember when we were coming up being told, if you're sending emails, and that was the thing to do, make sure that you are catching the eye of the coach early and like and incorporating maybe something about the university. That's a big thing. Like, then we're going off on different tangents now, but I truly believe in that. Like, when I'm reading these emails quickly, if they've incorporated something into Chaminade that they know about Chaminade or done some research, or like, yeah, like have spent some time, rather than one that I know is like BCC to every coach and is just very general and throwing it out there, I usually read more and
Right.
keep going down it quickly and stuff like that. Or having just the initial like a position size stats like right off the bat and then hopping in some stuff after. But like, you can't spend more than, if there's 200 to 250 emails every morning. I mean, if I'm going to read every one of those emails fully, that's going to take me hours. And I can,
It'd be all day.
yeah, it's just like, so I got like 15 to 20 seconds to make up my mind or not. And one of my personal things, I know this is different for every coach, but if they like address me in the email, like Coach Milligan, and say that, and it's not just like a general blast out to everybody, and it's coming from the kid, or even really their high school coach or AU coach, I try to too. But really, if it's coming from the kid, I'd make the time to respond. Like, I'm going to respond, whether it's right now or, hey, I just tagged this one to do it, and at the end of the night, like before I go to bed. Because I remember, I remember being in that same situation and just hoping for a response, even if it's no, like seeing something. And that was the same way when I was getting into coaching, just hoping for a response. And I respond to every single GA, young student manager, whoever that has any questions or wanting to know about opportunities and stuff like that. And even though most of the time I can't really do much for them, I'm going to respond, because yeah, I remember sending out 365 emails, like monthly, when I was looking for a coaching job right out of college and whatnot, and just getting a response from people was really cool, and it just meant a lot. So I still remember that feeling and want to be able to, at least I can do that at least.
Man, that's crazy. 200, 250 emails. Just put it in perspective. Like for me, Division III women's, I'm probably only getting like 25
Mm-hmm.
to I would say, yeah, 25 a morning probably.
Yeah.
So you're like 10x. That's crazy.
Yeah, and this is kind of going back to the recruiting thing and like how we see guys and stuff like that. But I think it's also a kind of unique situation in Chaminade, because Chaminade is so global in the fact that like people know Chaminade's name, and in the past, I mean, it's been like, if you look at the rosters, it's like Australia, England, Florida, West Coast. Well, yeah, like there's been periods where there's a lot of California guys because our league's California, so their families can come see them. And then, of course, there's a lot of kids and a lot of talent in California. But overall, I mean, you go through the rosters on the West Coast in the past 10 years, I don't think you find another roster that is so mixed. We got dudes from everywhere, from each coast to coast, from all over the world. So, and people know that, and people have connections. It's like, oh, I remember Andre Aerosol growing up when I was playing and watching him growing up. And then he went on and played at the school Chaminade in Hawaii, England kid. So all of a sudden we got all these England kids 4 years later hitting us up and putting Andre in their email. Or same thing Australia wise. There's always been a big pipeline, Hawaii to Australia. Even we've had a lot of Japanese and Chinese players. So yeah, I think that's a big reason too. I don't know if it's every school. I don't know. I haven't talked to a ton of coaches on how many emails they're getting each morning. I just know that it's a lot, man, and it can bury you, and then you feel like you want to respond to everybody and every single thing, but it's not possible.
Yeah. I mean, good luck coming back from vacation.
Oh, hey, I mean, we could go off in so many different directions on this, but that's one of the hardest parts, is like separating yourself in a situation like that I've struggled with, like putting my phone down or putting the laptop away when I'm with family. Because I don't get a lot. I'm not with family out on island, and when I'm with them or on vacation or something like that, like putting it away, because I know if I do put it away, I'm going to be absolutely overwhelmed when I get back. And then also, of course, yeah, you just don't want to feel behind. I mean, I feel like most coaches are like, hey, like I'm on top of this. I'm doing my job. I want to be doing it all the time, or I feel uncomfortable. At least that's the way I'm wired. Like if I'm not plugged in all the time, then I start getting like, oh, I'm not doing good enough. I'm not doing good enough. But it's a balance, man, because I don't want to like ruin relationships in my life with family and people I care about because I can't put my phone down or I can't not respond to this email till later.
Right.
Yeah.
When you're in a gym recruiting, let's say you're at like an AAU game or something, do you know pretty quickly what level a kid is when you're seeing them?
That's a good question. Pretty quickly, generally. I mean, there's a lot of. I think I could tell athletically, like, okay, this guy's a D2 junior college kind of like athlete right here. He can make these kind of plays. He can do these kind of things. Then, of course, you got to figure out after that what's his grade situation, what's like how he fits and stuff like that. So athletically, size-wise, quickness-wise, I'd say yeah on that. But the skill-wise stuff, I try not to hop to a conclusion right away. So try to like circle guys that I like, no matter what level I think they are. And that's a big, I think, misconception too. Like people were like, oh, looking, and I remember doing this too as a player, like who's in the gym right now? Like what level of coaches are in the gym? Well, I'm circling guys that I think are circling them first off to evaluate them more, go watch them more. And then at that point, writing down, hey, like this is a good high level D3 guy. This is a mid-level D3 guy. This guy's a mid-level Division I guy, like mid-major. That guy's a high major. I'm not even writing anything about him anymore. I'll let all the reporters do that. But that kind of stuff. And then I get back to wherever I'm going, and that gets shot out to all my coaching friends immediately. Like if I'm like, hey, this gives me a stud in the Sky Act, I'm calling my coaching friends in the Sky Act and being like, you need to follow this kid, and you got to do the work and see if his grades are right and everything like that, because I don't know. But I'm just telling you, playing wise, he'd be a big time player for you guys. So I would just encourage young men to not worry about who's in the gym, like play as hard as they can all the time, especially now with the cameras. And same thing, I'm watching Baller TV, I'm watching guys, I'm doing the same assessment, sitting at home in Hawaii while kids are playing in California. See a guy who I think is going to be a really good D3 player, I'm hitting up my friends that are coaching D3, trying to help them out, because it's all connection based and everything's intertwined. And that's the whole basketball business, from recruiting to coaching to getting jobs to everything. It's just all relationship based. So just playing hard no matter who's in the gym all the time. But yeah, evaluating, I try to make a quick evaluation for like us to see if they can come into a bigger group of like, okay, these are guys I need to watch again for us personally. But then yeah, it moves pretty quickly. There's so many kids to watch that you can't spend too much time on the initial first time seeing a kid or first time being in this gym and watching this tournament. I'm just watching teams that I know and coaches that I have relationships with their teams, and they've told me they've got a couple guys that I think would be right. So do that initial one, and then, okay, we go back, we sit down as a staff, we evaluate, we make our hot list, we put our top 25 guys together, we rank them. And then now the next tournament, we're following those guys and we're locked into who we want. And now, okay, is this our guy? No, maybe he is, but I don't think he's in our top 5. Let's move him down to 20, shuffle the list a little bit. No, this guy's out, but man, he could be a really good, like low-level Division II player. Okay, I'm going to push him to this school, see if they want him or whatever. So that's kind of the way it works, evaluating early.
With like the NBA draft, they lately have been going to like, we're going to draft best possible no matter what position. Are you guys similar in the sense of like you're going after best possible player and you'll figure out the fit later, or are you going for position fit first?
That is the Chaminade MO right there, man. It always has been. And that's something that I've had to adjust to a lot because I've never been in another program like that, playing-wise or coaching-wise. And it's scary sometimes because you're like, Coach, we got 10 guards. We're taking another guard. It's like, he's the best player on the board. Like, we will take our chances on us being relatively good coaches and putting these guys in positions to succeed by having the best players on our team. So not in position is like, that's kind of how it happened this year. We didn't take a big this year, a transfer big, even though we knew we needed one because we didn't think any were good enough and fit our situation. So we went and took more wings, and we had a bunch of wings, and we played a bunch of wings, and we played small ball, and we adjusted. And it was really fun. It was really rewarding. Our guys liked it a lot. Now it takes a very high level of endurance and being in shape and whatnot, but it was very fun to play and adjusting. So that's the way Chaminade's always been. Now, I'm not saying that's the right way or anything. I'm just saying that's the way that Chaminade does it, best available. Now, if there's times where it's like, man, we really, really have to have someone in this spot just in case. Yeah, that's a fact. But and we'll follow that. But and honestly, I think when we look at high school a little bit more, and we're recruiting high school, it gets closer to position. There's still best available, but closer to position. Like, okay, in 3 years, we can see him. He'll be our centerpiece in this position group. It's not really down to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's kind of like guards, wings, forwards, bigs, kind of like more like that. So I think high school is a little bit more position-wise for us, recruiting-wise, and transfer-wise. It's like, this kid can play. This kid can play. He's going to come in. He's going to be able to fit in our offense and do it that way. And then defensively, we adjust defensively to what we got. Everything from ball screen coverage to if we're pressing, to if we're in a half-court defense all the time, pressure-wise, on-ball pressure, all that kind of stuff.
Do you see that kids struggle more coming into college offensively or defensively?
I would say overall it's defensively, but Chaminade's unique in so many ways, and a lot of that's the placement of the school, the name of the school, but also that is just Coach Bovaird and the way he does things. It's really different, and I love it, and it's taught me so much. He's such a good coach, but it's definitely different. And the reason why I say offensively is because we run a completely read-based offense, which there are not many high school kids who have ever had that. Like, I know I wasn't one. I was in Gene Potter's offense doing exactly what I was told, and we were doing that down to a T, and it was fun because we were winning and it was successful. But you got guys now that it's just like everything's off feel, experience, knowing where guys are. Now it's a very fun style to play, and that's why we get so many guys and they stay and they don't want to transfer because they love playing that way of basketball. But it takes time, and it's tough for high school guys at first, especially guys from smaller areas maybe that haven't had like a very high level of competition. We still take guys like that all the time, like small. We got a kid from Oakland, Nebraska, where he put up monster numbers. Dantley Walker, he actually played at UNLV first, but he was from Panaca, Nevada. He's our other assistant coach now. Put up huge numbers. Was a top 5 high school player numbers-wise in the country. But it takes time to come in and against high-level athletes and really good players and be able to make reads and just make the right decisions all the time in an offense like that. So I'd say for Chaminade, it's offensively. Defensively, we can get you there quick. Yeah, it might be some initial adjustments right off the bat, but I think we have a faster turnaround time adjustment-wise defensively than offense takes a while sometimes for high school guys. It really does. And when we recruit best available, especially for transfers, has to be a guy that we think can play in that read style. It's like you don't have time. It's not like you have 5 years like these high school guys are going to have. Yeah. Like they have to be able to do this right away. So it's kind of funny. We're like talking to the coaches about the guys that are transferring. We're asking about how they play in open gym. Like who cares about how guys play in open gym? Well, we care because they're not being coached to be in spots necessarily in those times and stuff like that. They're playing against really good competition, especially these like mid to high major Division I transfers we get. And it's like, well, how do they do in those open gym situations? Because at that point, they're just making reads. That's what open gym is. So it's definitely different for Chaminade in that case. But, yeah, I'd say offensively is a little bit harder for high school guys with Chaminade.
We were talking a little bit before this about how you are thankful that you have so many duties as an assistant at Chaminade and that your head coach has given you such a big platform to work within the program. Can you talk a little bit about what are some of your practice duties and game duties that you have and that you may not have been given at a different situation?
Yeah. I'll start out with kind of just a timeline of like when I got to Chaminade and what they started with and what it is now. When I got there, I was the second assistant. A lot of my responsibilities were, let's go start off the court. Academically, class checks, staying on top of guys, making sure everybody's in a good spot. Coach Bovaird takes a lot of pride in our team GPA, and we've won like 4 national awards in the past 5 years. And that's something that also has evolved over time in Chaminade, I think. I don't think it was that way before Coach Bovaird was there. And he takes a lot of pride in that. So one of my ends of the bargain when I first got there was, hey, this is how we do things now. You keep it that way. So I did that, staying on top of guys academically and whatnot. A ton of film.
That's that Division III life right there.
Yeah, exactly, man. And I know about the Division III life too, so that's all good. But yeah, I mean, it just clearly Division II. A lot of times you got guys who, especially when you're getting transfers from Division I, where man, they are placed all the time. Like we study at this study hall hour every single day as a team or in individual groups. Like everything is bracketed. D2 is kind of the in between ground where it's like, well, those guys who need that, we got to do that for. So we got to figure that out. And we always sit down as a staff at the beginning of the year and figure out our at-risk guys, like who needs that, who's had that in the past, and that's the only way. And we make sure they communicate with us. We've had some guys who are really good at letting us know, like, Coach, I need you to make me come in 4 times a week and sit in your office and do this, and then set me up with a tutor twice a week. It's like, absolutely, we'll do that. And then I got guys who have been there for a year or two and like have 3.8, 4.0. I'm like, Coach, do I need to be doing? He's like, no, let that guy go. He's earned the right to do this the way he wants. Mm-hmm. D3, it's like guys are so on top of their academics. They know it. That's what, in the end, really they're there for, is to get a great degree and set themselves up for life. So they're on top of it. So I'd say D2 is kind of the middle ground between those two. But yeah, so I started off doing a lot of that kind of stuff, a lot of film work, ton of film work. We don't stop practice much. So we go live, try to pull guys, make quick correction subs, but we don't stop and talk very much. So we're going live all the time, which means we're recording every practice. And then we watch a ton of film and do a lot of the corrections in there. So ton of individual one-on-one and group film. So I did a lot of that. And all these things I still do, but we'll get to what got added. Player development, bigs. When I got hired, I was supposed to be mostly like player development for the bigs. We had Tim Bross, who did a great job with the guards and did a bunch of really good work with the guards and had a lot of all-league guards, I think, due to a lot of the time spent outside of practice working with them. So I would work with the bigs early on, before practice and after practice, development-wise. And then we do an appalling amount of development at Chaminade because in a read-based offense, if you don't have very developed guys who can make plays from all different spots and positions, it's not going to work very well. So you better do a lot of player development or your offense isn't going to work. So those were like my initial responsibilities. Of course, I'm doing the normal things, reffing during practice. I'm beating on guys with the pads. I was getting used live a lot because I'm still, at that point, was only a few years out of college and still like getting in there and mixing it up, trying to keep myself in shape. But I was doing a lot that first year if we had injuries and stuff like that. So all those general things. And then kind of as it went on, Coach Bross moved on from us, and my role, I was the top assistant then, and it started opening up so that next year, in-game responsibilities, let's take a step back. The year before in-game, I helped with the subs with Coach Bross, but that was mostly his responsibility. I was watching the big group a lot because we were playing fast, and we had bigs who were big boys, and they could play fast too, but for shorter stints. So making sure they're not completely gassed, the tank's emptied, and they can't give us anything. So staying on top of that, charting kills during games. We record kills 3 stops in a row, trying to get 7 per game. So I was on top of that. Fouls, that was one of my responsibilities. Timeouts, possession, those kind of things. Basically, once Coach Bross left, I moved up into that top assistant role, and now I had full control of the subs. Just gives Coach Bovaird a lot more opportunity to stay locked in on the offense, and that's what he is a mastermind at. That is what he wants to do. So doing whatever he wants us to do so he can only concentrate on that. Absolutely. So I took over the subs. That was a big adjustment, man. It's different when there's 15 guys who want to play, and everybody's not going to play. So
yeah, that part of your duty that we were talking about fascinates me. Is that something that you think is common, that, and maybe in your league?
In our league, I think it's probably about 50-50 of guys that I think that the assistant coaches, and some of the ones that have been there longer. I was honored that Coach Bovaird gave it to me as fast as he did. I think it's now by all means, we sit down before every game and we're like, hey, this guy should be probably in about this minutes group. This guy should be in that minutes group. This guy should be the first guy off the bench if possible. Now, all that, you can plan all you want, but once the ball gets tipped up, man, it's like, this guy's got 2 fouls in 10 seconds. Well,
that's actually one of the questions I had is what is your guys' philosophy on like fouls in the first half? Like, are you pulling the guy and sitting him, and if he gets 2, or are you going to let him maybe play with 2 to 3?
If he gets a quick 2, yeah, he gets pulled. If he gets 2 in the first media, he gets pulled. Usually looking at, depending on who he is and what position he is and who we're playing personnel-wise. Like, we had a kid, Kendall Small, this year, played at Oregon and played at Pacific. Great player. We needed him on the court all the time, but was so aggressive, and he's just such a dog that he would pick up some fouls sometimes. So trying to balance him was probably the hardest, because I wanted him on the floor all the time. But if he wasn't on the floor at the end of the game, we had absolutely no shot at winning games. It's just what it came down to. He guarded the best player on the other team. He was our leading rebounder, our leading assist guy. He's a 5'11" point guard. He led us in rebounding and assists, and he guarded the best player.
Cow.
He's an animal, and I'm going to miss him. But
so at the end of games, you were willing to risk him fouling out?
Yep. At the end of games, but picks up a quick 2 in the first medium, which happened a lot. Usually it's like another guy, you're probably not playing until maybe the last media of the half. We needed him on the floor so bad. It was usually around 10 to 12 minutes, like that area, where we'd put him in with 2 and be like, Kendall, you have to be smart. The other big part is he just was always flying in the lane, like making plays, because he's so much stronger than most guards in our league, and just he'd go into a 7-footer's body and just body a 7-footer and like lay it up. Like it was unbelievable. But he would he'd get charges sometimes because of that. So that's what scared us, because he was always attack mode, and we told him to always be in attack mode. But it's like, man, he's got 2, he picks up 3. Now he can't guard the best player second half. We're having to put somebody else on him. We asked him to do so many things, man. I can't believe he stepped up to the plate the way he did. I mean, if you're going to guard the best player, be the best rebounder, be the best guy with the ball in your hands assist-wise, and then still be a dog and like try to stay out of foul trouble, it's pretty unbelievable. But he did a really good job for what we asked him to do. But yeah, that 10 to 12 area, and now it's a different situation for like 2 years ago when we had good bigs. They picked up a couple early. They sat a little bit longer. We could adjust. Eric Shive was one that we could adjust. We also knew about his minute range cardio-wise. Couldn't push him past that much, because when you got past that, you could see the difference big time in film, emptying the tank. So in an offense like Chaminade, when you have a really, really good guard, I think you got to go back to him a little bit earlier than you do with some of the bigs. The bigs you save towards the end of the game, their legs get to stay fresh that way. It could end up being an advantage for you. You just got to maintain without them in the game for a little bit, stay close, stay right there. And all of a sudden you got your all-league big back in the game with no foul problems anymore at the end of the game. That's a big time factor. So yeah, subs is not easy, man. It's not. I finally feel comfortable with it, but it took a long time.
Yeah, it's a big duty. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking of the last team I was the head coach of, which was my AAU program. Mm-hmm. And I liked the assistant subbing so that I could focus on the game like you were talking about. But it is important. There are times during the game where I would turn and be like, no, we're not taking her out. Like, we need her in right now. Like, did you run into those situations?
Oh, yeah. Coach would turn around and was like, why is Kendall still out? I'm like, well, he's got 3 in the first half. Like, I mean, he wants his best players on the floor. And it's like it gets to a point where, like, he doesn't even really know the foul situations at some point. Like, he does, but he doesn't know exactly at all the times. He's got way bigger things on his mind. And I think that's the point, like you said. Like, hopefully when I'm a head coach someday, I'd like to do the same thing. Give the assistant that's been there and I trust. And we still sit down every day and we talk about who should be in and kind of what times and everything like that. Mm-hmm. But like we said, things change very quickly. But I think that gives the head coaches so much more room to concentrate on play calling and adjustments and that kind of stuff and put that in the hands of one of your assistants. But yeah, he turned back and he'd give me, and we'd go back and forth real quick. It's all love though. I mean, it's like you go back and forth and trying to explain it, but like being passionate about it and probably sounding like, oh man, are they yelling at each other? No, they're just trying to get the best players in the best possible times.
Right. And it's all in the moment, sense of urgency, there's no time to waste. Talk about you're in control of the defense, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
So that was a year 3 thing. That was just this past year for the first time.
is this something where the coaching staff comes together during the off season and you figure out what you want to build, and then from there you're in charge of building it, or?
Correct. Yep. More or less, Coach Bovaird laid out what he saw, the direction he saw our defense going, and some of the biggest points that we've built on the past few years that he wanted to keep, and some things he wanted to get better at. And from there, it was figure out the ways to do that. Also, the biggest thing was adjusting to what personnel we were bringing in. So once we finished that class, it was like, okay, well, we don't have a big. We do not have a big, and we don't know who's going to start in those big spots until October 15th. We go 2 months of live play, more or less, when our guys get there. We have no projected starters. Another unique thing to Chaminade, like, you did all this last year. Fantastic. We're proud of you. We love you for it. Thank you for doing that. You better forget about it and work this summer, because we come back day 1 and we start competing. The top 10 guys on October 15th are going to be the top 10 guys to start the season, at least. Now things can change throughout the season, but it doesn't matter who you are, what you've done for us in the past. Like, it's right now. So we don't know who we're going to play yet. So just knowing, though, that, hey, we don't have any bigs, so adjustments got to be made. We start off the season doubling the post every single time, figuring out different ways to double the post. We had like 4 different packages, slowly implementing them. Started off with 2, made some adjustments, watched a ton of film. So after Coach gave me kind of his ideas of where he wanted it, that was when I was like, all right, I got to dig into how to make this happen. And then I'd go watch a bunch of film, a ton of stuff on State Energy, ways different teams do things, watch a lot of Virginia. They double the post a lot, monster it a lot, topside, big, but that's kind of tough in our league because it happens a lot at the high major level when you got like 2 true bigs. You can double off that other big monster the high side every single time, but there's a lot of 4 out, 1 in, or even 5 out, none in our league. So it's like it kind of gets. We did that a lot in Maui. We did it against Kansas. We had to. We had a 6'6" guy guarding as a bouquet, and it still didn't matter. He just his ability to get the ball to the rim is insane. Just catch it and somehow find a way to dunk the ball is crazy. I've never seen anything like it. But yeah, the coach laid out the structure. Then I went and did all the research. We bring it back to him. He said, yeah, he likes it. Yeah, he doesn't. Then we start looking at, okay, we're going to implement this first part, this first week of practice, the second part, the second week of practice, kind of build it all up. Because those were big adjustments. We hadn't done a lot of those things. We've done the ball pressure side of things. We've done where we force guys, and nobody's going middle, everybody's going baseline. This is our level of activity on the ball. But also when you go smaller, that level of activity on the ball even has to be like even higher, which I already thought the year before it was probably about as high as we were going to get it. But nope, we took it to another level this year, and we plan on, even with getting it hopefully a big this year, taking it to another level next year. It's just so big in our league. There's too many good coaches and too many good teams. They'll sit back and pick you apart. If you don't have great ball pressure all the time, it's worth giving up a couple drives here and there and scrambling and adjusting. So that's our philosophy on it. But yeah, that was a big adjustment. So it's like slowly implementing those things every week, but at the same time, like, we got to be on top of them, because the way D2 is, you get back late August, you're playing by end of October. There's a lot of adjustments to be made. So coach gave me the structure, I ran with it, and then in game it was more or less I was making the calls, whether we were in our press, different presses. Now that press that we did run was a press that he's run before at West Liberty, at Nova, and stuff like that. So that's credit to him. It's a great press, but it took some time to put that in. That was one of them. Then we had a different one, different packages. So I'd make the calls and we'd adjust, like off dead balls, more or less off free throws. Just like giving the calls. The guys would all look over to me on the bench, could give the calls, different hand signals, different calls for what we were in, whether it was how we're guarding ball screens. We had different calls for how we're guarding ball screens, how we're guarding the post, and if we were in press or if we were just picking up 90. So yeah, that's kind of the in-game responsibilities of defense this year.
That's a lot to juggle with the making sure you're focusing on the defense, but also handling the subs. But it's it's something I'm sure you love doing. I was thinking when you were talking about watching Virginia on Synergy, could you imagine being an assistant coach in like 1980 without Synergy?
No, I mean, I guess it was just like you had to, it was right, like the VHS passing and like know the people and they had this mail it. I think that's what Deuce used to always talk about. Like you had to ask them for it and they had to put it in the mail.
I mean, it's just so much work to get one game, and we
Right.
at the push of a button, we have every team, every game. It's so amazing. I get lost on Synergy just watching random teams.
Yeah. It can be like you go into a YouTube hole, you can go into a Synergy hole so quick.
For sure. I was curious. I wanted to talk to you about the Maui invite. I think that's something that is a huge draw about going to Chaminade. Is that every year that you guys play in it or host it?
So used to be every year. Now it's every other year. Technically, we still host it, but we only play in it every other year. And then in the off year, we play at the home sites of 2 of those games, and they call those the Maui Mainland games.
Okay.
So next year we play at Stanford and at UNLV.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a good experience. And at first we were a little concerned, like we want to be in it every year, but TV thing, money thing, blah 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 blah. So it was a little bit of an adjustment, but once we went to that first game at Arizona, or no, at San Diego State and then Arizona and played in those stadiums and got to experience that. A lot of our guys hadn't had experiences like going on the road and playing in a gym like Arizona where they've got Jason Terry and Richard Jefferson and Luke Walton, all these jerseys hanging above them and stuff like that. And the guys are out there flying their drones around on campus and stuff and like just taking it in and enjoying it, man. And so it ended up, I like it the way it is. It's another opportunity for our guys' families to come see them if they can't afford to get into Hawaii, which is big. We get a lot of family and boosters and alumni coming to those games. So that was 2 years ago we did that. This past year we hosted Maui, played Kansas, UCLA, and Georgia. And this next year, yeah, at Stanford, at UNLV. And then the year after, the class just came out. Not any like blue bloods, which is interesting. I think the first time I've seen no like blue bloods in Maui, but you look at the overall tournament, it's probably the hardest one since I've been at Chaminade. Just the level of teams and coaches and from Oregon, Texas A&M, Notre Dame. There's just a bunch of really good teams, so that'll be tough.
I mean, yeah, as a D2 program, that must be. I mean, it's a huge highlight of the year to be able to play these teams. But coaching wise, I mean,
Yeah.
you have to prepare to play Georgia, Anthony Edwards. Like, how do you
Yeah.
prepare for that?
Yeah. We can get into this all day, man. This is honestly one of the most interesting points and something I didn't even think about before I got to Chaminade. But it's crazy because, like I said earlier, we're playing 2 D2 games. Usually those are regional games. And the way D2 works is you need to win those regional games early in the year against teams in the other 2 West Coast conferences, the GNAC and the CCAA. And because at the end of the year, your region ranks top 8 teams of those 3 conferences are going to the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
So those are huge games. So you're putting all these time in, haven't played a game yet this year other than scrimmages and exhibitions, and you've got to win those games. And then you win those games and you feel great and like, man, this is going to set us up great for if we take care of business in conference for the end of the season. And then you got to just on the dime flip it. Like we've been playing in Alaska in this crossover, Alaska. So we go last year, we're in Alaska. We win 2 huge games. We're super psyched. And then it's like we fly back to Hawaii from Alaska and immediately flip it to, all right, let's try and stop Azubuike, which is just not happening. But yeah, it's crazy. And the part that I think doesn't get thought about very much is you see these other teams at Maui, these high major D1s, they've got a staff of 20 to 25 people. We have 3 people. We have 2 coaches who do scouts, me and our other assistant, Danley Walker, at this point. And it is, I mean, I haven't slept like any year at Maui, that especially that 3rd day, you don't know who you're going to play. Like you're guessing, you're hoping. First year we knew we were going to play Cal, honestly. So I had that scout locked in a couple weeks before, like just in case, like, hey, there's a good chance we play Cal day 3.
So do you prepare like 8 scouts just in case you? I mean, all the possibilities.
Yeah, usually don't prepare the number 1 team on the other side. Honestly, I mean we'd have to win our first 2 games and then play them in the championship. And realistically, if you look at the numbers, that's not very likely. So usually don't do that one. But yeah, like 6 scouts for 2 people, which is a lot. And you want to take your time, but you also want to kind of try and bank on the one that you think that's like, this game's ours. And yeah, we definitely put more time. I'd be lying if I said we didn't put more time into Cal and Georgia. So we're doing a lot of research early to figure out who those 1 or 2 teams are that we think we could potentially play. That's like we're going to win this ball game for sure. Like, this is our game, and truly believe that. And yeah, I mean, we think we can win every game clearly, but as a coaching staff, like, you got to be realistic and put the time into the areas where you think you're going to get the most success out of it. So we go into every game planning to win and having a good scout and stuff like that, but even a little bit more extra time, maybe a week before we even get there, like for a day 3 game potentially or something like that. But yeah, the turnover, those day 3 games, man, up all night trying to prepare everything, scouts, we draw out all the plays, try to wake those guys up early in the morning. Those day 3 games they used to be at 9:30 a.m. So we're watching film at 6 a.m. with the whole team, and we're playing at 9:30. We actually like that. We think they gave us an advantage. They switched it this year on us. I'm going to go on record saying I still think we would have beat Georgia if we would have played them at 9:30 this year, but it was a 4:00 game the way they switched it. I just think it's an advantage for us. We're super locked in. We know this is the day that we're about to come out with a win. And some of those other teams have lost 2 days in a row. It's 9:30 in the morning. No one plays at that time, and they're not as locked in. So either way, still had a chance to win it this year. And Anthony Edwards is a lottery pick, man. He did what lottery picks do and pulled up from 5 feet behind the line and drained it on us. But yeah, it's a great experience. The scouting part is hard. It's difficult. It's time consuming. And when you really look at it in the big scheme of things, it doesn't even matter, because when they rank us for the national tournament, we win those games. It doesn't count anything to our RPI. So it's like, it's just for pride.
Yeah. I mean, and it probably helps in recruiting.
For sure. I mean, pride in recruiting. That's where we're going.
Do you prepare differently for those big D1 programs, or is it exactly the same?
Definitely differently. Can't press them. Can't really trap them in ball screens that much. The guards are just too elite. They're too big, and they see the floor too well. Defensively is definitely how we adjust more. They have problems with coach's offense. I mean, go back and watch the tape, man. Teams can't really guard coach's offense. The one team that, credit to them, UCLA this year, man, holy moly. And they weren't even where they were at by the end of the year. But even at that point, Coach Cronin and a lot of that staff there, I mean, they did a great job. That was the toughest team I've ever been a part of playing against defensively. They're really, really tough. But you go back and look at most of the other tape, coach's offense works really well. Now, yeah, sometimes it's like, man, these guys are so fast, so big, everything like that. It's pretty tough. But defensively is where we have to definitely be different. Our offense doesn't change a lot. It really doesn't. Of course, early in the year, we don't put some things in that we're going to use later in conference, hold that back. But overall, defense changes, offense about the same.
That's fascinating. I love that. I mean, even at the D3 level, in my playing days, we were lucky enough to play against like University of Oregon, Oregon State, Portland State. And it's, at the end of the day, it's basketball, but there are some big differences size-wise from D3 to D1. The one thing that helped us on our end D3-wise was we usually had 4 to 5 shooters on the court at all times. And so if a team went big on us, we would just space them out. And, their 6'11" guy wasn't used to defending a 6'5" guy that could shoot it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is fascinating. I've had you on here for about an hour, so I'm going to finish with 3 questions. What are some things you feel like are your strengths as a coach?
I'd say being able to relate to the guys still. I kind of credit that to being like younger, like our age, and I still have the strong feeling of what it felt like being in a locker room and having like the feeling of when coaches are connecting with you and they truly care about you, and not just about the wins and loss record, but like who you are and trying to develop you as a young man. And the coaches where that just wasn't of interest, and you can feel that. I mean, we know that, like, absolutely. And I still literally feel it. I don't just say it and know it and like, this is something. So I think this is just my opinion. That's kind of an advantage, and I hope that stays forever. But I kind of give a little bit of credit to it being, I haven't been in this game for the amount of period where that started to wear off at all. I really do hope that always stays that way, because I take a lot of importance in, like, my guys know that I really do care about them a lot. And I think you can coach them a lot harder when they know that. They let me get on them. They know that I'm not being on them just to be a prick. Like, they want to get better. I want them to get better. I care about them. They're going to let me coach them hard in this situation. So I'd say just being able to relate to the guys and be able to get to them and know that nothing's personal. I'm not attacking them, that this is because I care about you guys and we can get there. I'd say by far that's probably my biggest strength. Basketball wise, like you go X's and O's, I've just spent a lot of time my whole life with a lot of good bigs and post coaches. So a lot of stuff like that for player development, I feel very comfortable with. And then just team stuff. I mean, I know we play together, man, and it's something that I've always really appreciated about you too, because I think you're really similar. Just the overall mindset and just somebody that's just like doing it for the guy next to me all the time, whether that's a coach or a player or whatever. And that's the way I've always been. That's the reason I think I was a captain and stuff. It wasn't from the skills. By no means was I good enough to be in a lot of positions I was in. But I think it was from my mindset. And it's just like, I grew up like that. And I give a lot of credit to Gene Potter at Jesuit, honestly, for instilling that in me and showing me how hard it was and how hard I had to work. And still at the same time, like, you work this hard, but in the end, it's about the greater good of the group and doing it for the guy next to you and stuff like that. And that's really stuck with me and something I pride myself on. So I think that's one of my bigger advantages, accomplishments, whatever you want to call it.
I love it. Let's flip it. What's something you want to improve on as a coach?
There's just so many layers to X's and O's of basketball. I feel like I can't get enough of it. Like, I can study all day. I can get all this stuff in. I feel like I don't know near enough. And I think it's going to be that way forever. Hopefully I want to be learning and putting myself around people that are willing. And that's the best part about Coach Bovaird. Like we touched on earlier, man, he gives me so much responsibility. He really wants me to learn. And our AD, Bill Villa, they want me to get that experience, true hands-on experience, and have that opportunity to develop, which means a ton to me. But yeah, X's and O's wise, just offensively, especially, like I clearly have had more experience now with running a defense. I haven't ran a whole offense by myself ever. Like, you've done it at the AU level. I haven't. Like, I mean, Pee Wee stuff and working for Jeff Christensen now at Showcase. But other than that little stuff, like I have not done that. So getting there. And then one thing that I always am trying to continue to work on that I picked up from Coach Bovaird is that not everything needs a reaction right away, good or bad. I think I'm pretty passionate and pretty into what I do, and I just react because it's like, I'm happy at this, or like, well, this can't happen this way, and it's not me like attacking anything, but just reacting. Like you will say something to coach, and he will sit there and not say a word for like, it seems like eternity, and you're like, am I doing something wrong, or like, what's going on? He's processing it. He wants to make sure that he takes in what you said. He's actually listening to what you said. He's not just asking a question or saying something so he can retort with something back. Like, he's really listening. He's taking it in. He's internalizing it. And then he's going to come back with like his educated, well thought out happiness or disdain for whatever happened. So trying to follow in his footsteps in that regard, I think is something that would make me a lot better coach, and honestly just a better dude overall. So
okay, last question. What are some of your future coaching goals?
Next year, I mean, every year we're shooting to win the conference. I haven't won it since I've been here. That eats at me. I have a picture on my background on my phone forever, cutting down the nets at Jesuit, man, and I haven't cut down nets since. It's been a long time, and I still feel that every day, and it's the best feeling in the world. So a championship, I'd do anything for a championship next year. That is definitely the biggest goal. Of course, I'd love to be a head coach. Don't necessarily know what level. Somewhere down the line, I look forward to hopefully getting that opportunity. I think if I work hard and stay on the right path and whatnot, that is plausible, and I look forward to having my own team one day. But I really love, just like we were talking about a minute ago, just doing it for the guy next to you, and then hopefully getting to that ultimate goal, because there's no better feeling than knowing that like you poured it all in, not only for yourself, but for the other guys and for the people that you were grinding and running next to every day, and then for the coaching staff that put all this time and effort into you. And now you're up there cutting that net down with those people like standing below you, watching you cut that net down on the ladder. that feeling is so cool. And I still feel it, and I still yearn to have that again. So that is by far the most immediate goal.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. I haven't cut down a net in my whole life, so I'm looking forward to that someday also.
Dude, I'm telling you, I can't shake it. I can't shake it. It's the best feeling in the world.
Chasing it. Well, I appreciate you. I didn't mean to take an hour and 15. I thought it'd be a little bit quicker, but thank you for your time. I appreciate it, Kyle.
I didn't, man. We could talk all day. I appreciate you.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
Thanks, man.